Messiah tanking it up. I do not believe he just believed. Lots of luck. No, you might hit the What? I cannot understand this game. Unicorns of love. It wasn't you said. The Nexus.
Hello and welcome to the T-Force LCS Rundown, episode 148. This is your host, Monkenor. I'm joined this week by Mr. Shaun.
I feel heavily bamboozled by what just occurred.
Oh, we hit it quick. Mr. Ian's here too.
Whoa, that's me.
Chris is here.
What if I wasn't ready right there? So what if I
ready
had
now,
terrible
boy?
news?
It would be no different than any other week.
Blake is here.
Yeah, hey-oh.
Grant is here.
Duffy, I feel the exact same that you do. I feel cheated.
I hit it really hard this week, and it's good, positive energy flowing through the veins of all of the TSM and CLG fans,
Hey,
and we just cannot.
I wanna fucking die.
It's season 2 again. We're winning.
It's so good.
Well, I mean, I have a fallback, because at least Dig went 2-0.
Yeah, dude, it's a good week for everyone.
It is actually.
Everyone
it's a pretty
everywhere.
solid week.
I'll say that it was a good week for me because Envy
Except for-
2-0'd Echo Fox.
Except for the fact that
They
it's
fucking
never a
won
good week
something.
for Europe. It's never a good week for Europe.
No,
Yeah.
God, I haven't even checked fantasy. I don't even want to think about it. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into the meat of things this week. A couple of things here. First off, coming up on March, I believe it's either March 3rd. No, sorry, it's either March 4th or March 5th. We're going to be having a LCS rundown
Group
versus
orgy. So,
T-Force
the address
proper
is...
Ultimate Bravery. It is going to be a streamed matchup. It's going to be completely random. If you don't know what Ultimate Bravery is, it's basically random ass champions with random ass builds that you have to build into, and it's going to be fantastic.
And, of course, it is BYOL. We do prefer Astro Glide.
Yeah, it's gonna be some hot fire. Other things we've got coming
Hopefully
up.
not.
So
You all are expected to get tested before coming.
I'm debating as to whether I think I have to leave the orgy references in because it's really like it's come through so smooth at this point. It needs to stay in.
Yeah, it will need to stay in this coming
And
Saturday.
I quote, Mott, we need to leave the orgy in.
You're saying that after the orgy happens, you stay in? Is that how you like to do it?
No, it's just whether
What
or
the
not
fuck is
I
wrong
just
with
mute
you?
Blake's
There's a lot of
thing
emotions
for like the first
going
half
through.
hour, and then we get into
You
it.
need to make sure there's a good come down.
Yeah, we just
Come
gotta.
on, you act like this is your first orgy.
Oh, there'll be a come down. Don't you worry. Other cool things we have coming out this week. Dark Spell, which is the newest T-Force RPG live play YouTube experience.
Oh, hey, I'm on that.
Yeah, you're on that, and Mr. Sean's on that. Sean's episodes are going to start airing next week. This week finishes up Chira Jaden from the T-Force Propers story arc, and then pretty soon we're going to be merging into one mega story. It's been a lot of fun. Blake's character is probably by far the most fun I've had DMing at this point, which I've only done it 3 times. So
My
out of the
character's
3.
name is, just to give you guys a little
preview.
taster, his name is Bengal Beastfoot. He is a gnome ranger who was raised by a cult
excuse
of
me.
dwarves.
Excuse me, character voices, please.
He wasn't speaking
no.
just then.
Oh, that's true. Blake has quite the character voice, and I'm very excited because I am making him commit to it. But lots of really cool things coming out. Of course, you can always check out our YouTube content, which has been fantastic. We have the LCS Goof Down, which is all of our outtakes from the things that I've probably already edited out of this show that might just make it
Mock
through
calls
there.
them outtakes. I call them quality fucking amusing content
Yeah.
that he just deems unworthy.
That's correct.
I don't know what made him god of you know what? I actually
Goofs.
do because he hired me.
He's your boss.
Speaking of hiring, let's do what I all fictionally pay you guys for. I guess pay you with respect.
Wait a second.
Pay us in what?
When did you get hired? What the fuck?
Yeah,
there
I
was
actually
no
take all of that
contract.
back. I
Yeah,
want my
Blake
jokes.
is-
What do you
Blake is
fictionally
the only
pay us
one
with?
who actually gets paid on this show.
Memes.
Yeah, I
No,
get
paid in
paid,
memes. Get paid
a
with
sweet
memes.
stipend.
Yes, sweet stipend. Kris and Grant got to go to PAX
It's a fucking stipend, you
It was
goddamn
a great time.
Neanderthal.
It was a great time going to PAX.
It's a fictional
Yeah.
stipend. It's called.
You guys
stipend.
got, you see, they got paid, and you guys fucking got mics. Everyone but
We did.
Ian's
We
gonna
got-
get something pretty much because he's already got the shit. But let's talk about all the things that Ian didn't get this week in North America. What
Correct.
a great,
Justice.
great series out of pretty much almost everyone was a banger this week. We're going to do like we did last week because I really like the flow, where we start our way from the bottom and work our way to the top. And this
I'm
week,
not starting first for once.
this week, we're actually going to start with Sean, and we're going to start with a little old team called Liquid.
Oh boy. So we're gonna call him the little old team called Liquid. There's, that little old train who could. This is that little old piece of shit that couldn't.
Yeah.
This team is so bad on so many levels. I don't think there's anything new to cover at all, to be honest. They're bad. They're really bad. They even are in last place because they lose the head-to-head with Envy.
I think what's going to happen here is Liquid is going to still get fourth place.
What the fuck is so funny?
They lost the head-to-head. Gee, like if I at any point in my life go home and have to look in the mirror and realize that I am being beaten by Siraf, I will kill myself.
But Blake, North American solo queue doesn't offer anything to him as a player. They're all so bad.
Oh, you know what? You're right. Siraf's right.
He's just
I'm
so
not going to hear anything for the
Siraf's
rest of
name
the
right.
fucking podcast.
He's so much better than everyone in NA. He just needs to lose to them to make them feel more confident. Yeah, Liquid's in some pretty hot water. I think the only way that they make it to their classic fourth place is probably at fourth place of the promotion tournament.
Oh god.
Oh, you stole it.
Yeah,
Fuck you.
No, I know. I was swinging up for that one.
Yeah,
Let's talk
Golden
about
Glue is
Envy though.
just, well, I just want to hold on a second here. Golden Glue is just so bad. Did anyone watch some of the stuff that he pulled this weekend? Like in that dig series when, for whatever reason, he didn't go down the river during that dragon gank. He just hung tight in his lane, and you watched him go back and forth a couple times and just not do anything. And then Cassiopeia gets a double kill. This was 2 minutes into the fucking game. Anyway,
Yep.
Golden Glue fucking sucks. What the hell?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I am going to say, if you were supposed to be the mid laner for your team, and your team was in last place, you're going to look like dick. And with the dysfunctional environment that Team Liquid has had ever since they got Piglet, and I'd say even before then, because the entire ownership and management is fucking shit, I don't think anyone is successful there. So I feel bad for Golden Glue more than I
Okay,
feel like he's
all
a
right,
piece
you
of
can
shit.
feel bad for Golden Glue, but one thing that you can fault Golden Glue for is when, for whatever reason, Piglet and Matt decide to flash over Dragon Wall 1.5 minutes into the game.
To
And
chase.
so-
See, already,
and so-
I can't fault him.
And so,
Chase
Bot lane
for one
is
kill.
already feeding
so-
before minions have gotten to lane.
so then Keen goes down, naturally, as a mid laner would do, to go and help his players, his two bot lane duo, who have just also had to flash over a wall at Dragon Pit. Here's a question for you. What does the other mid laner, who is facing up against said Keen, do? A, nothing, or B, something?
So here's one
Answer
thing I
is
would like
B.
to point out.
It is something he was supposed to go down. And he had Ghost, he had all these things, he just didn't. That is not us feeling bad for Golden Glue. Oh no, my team, nope, that was a personal play that he did not do. And I would have done,
He
and I'm a fucking
had
gold
to
player.
burn stuff to bail out fucking Matt and Piglet in spring 2017. If that
thing
was solo queue, I would not have done that.
The only thing that should be burned is the Team Liquid roster.
Amen. No. The Team Liquid management.
I think that's
Okay,
actually.
no, I
staff.
agree with that.
I think
They
that would
should
actually,
all, every single one of them, everyone who has existed in the entirety of the management should be tossed out.
I think it's
Just
actually.
thrown
It would
away.
technically
And that's
also be
it.
called.
We don't need to talk about them anymore.
And I hate to
They're
be a
garbage. They
stipler
shall
of
remain
semantics
garbage.
here, but I believe it would actually technically be called steaming. Let it sink.
Even-
Let it sink. Let it sink in. Let it sink in.
Yeah.
That was a
And
good
there
joke.
it goes.
Laughter
I
will
get where
come
you're
any
going.
second
It's
now.
still sinking. It's still sinking. Even though Envy did manage to take a series over them, there really still isn't a lot of improvement there. I don't know that there's too much to talk about here. They're still really, really low. I mean, with Dignitas's success, which we'll talk about in just a second here in this week, they've really managed to kind of stomp out their chances of getting stuck in the relegation tournament. So Envy is just not in any kind of position to make their way up and above. But let's talk about Dig. Big week for them.
We're not even going to talk about Envy.
No, we're just going to skip over them. I think we talked too long about Liquid.
All right, that's fine.
That's fair.
Yeah, man. Fucking Dig went 2-0 this week, which is great.
Yes, they
and
did.
I think the main news here, they 2-0'd FlyQuest, which was a shocker. FlyQuest did do some odd things. They picked like a Jarvan mid twice.
Which we'll talk about when we get to FlyQuest.
Yeah, exactly.
I
But I
think.
mean, Dig, they're looking notably better. I just want to note that even though the team that they played against did do some weird things, that's not the only reason. It's not like they got given the victories or anything. They played quite well. But
Yeah.
the main thing to note this weekend, and I do have some insider sources here, is they canned the whole fucking management team.
Yeah, we knew that their coach Cop. Or they brought in coach.
They brought in
or
Cop.
Wow,
They
brought in
didn't
Cop
just
as
they
a
didn't
coach.
just bring in Cop though. They fucking fired.
is a
They
god.
fired everybody.
Yeah,
And
there's a lot more.
completely redid the whole management team just because it was not working.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like at this point, we're going into week 6 now. I don't know how far Dignitas as a team can go. Do you see them? I mean, they're tied right now with Fox. They're a game down from Immortals and CLG, but at the same time, that is the gateway to playoffs. So do you see them being able to accelerate that much, or do you kind of see it as just being safe for the split?
I think that time will kind of tell. It just kind of sucks. I think one of the casters mentioned it. It kind of sucks that it's halfway through the split already, right? As they had to switch their whole staff out. Normally, this is where the ball gets rolling, right?
Yeah.
And like your coaching staff and your players are all starting to sort of get onto the same page. Whereas now they're kind of having to start from scratch, and we're already halfway through the split. But I have high hopes for it. And everyone, I mean, Cop has a good track record as a coach, and it was a good weekend for them. So
Yeah, I think there's a tendency sometimes for people to think too much in the split and see a failure or a low placement as being this like absolutely terrible thing. And for bigger organizations like Cloud9 and TSM, maybe that is a big deal because Worlds is a constant expectation. But for a team like Dignitas where they're just starting out, I think this isn't a bad thing. You know, they're going to get some time to kind of explore themselves, figure out what's working, what's not working. And at the end of the day, if they can make some big changes like they have this week and come out successful, you know, they're going to look better for the summer. And sure, maybe you don't make it into playoffs, but you're also not going to make it into relegation. So
yeah,
that's not a bad
think
thing.
I think they're definitely safe from relegations at this point. I really do, just based on how exactly bad Liquid and Envy both are. But I honestly think I have some hopes that they might even get to 6th place somehow.
I think they can make playoffs. I mean, you have to be better than Liquid, Envy, and like Immortals.
Yeah, and so I think
and
that
Fox.
they might be. That's
No, you only have to be better than 3 of them.
Is it?
No,
Three,
I think
one,
it's.
two,
I think there's
three,
2
4,
spots
5,
that go
6.
to.
You have to be able to get. You have to be able to get
Oh, that's right.
Above-
I'm
Yeah,
thinking
they have
from
to
the
knock.
old
They'll
Yeah,
have
system,
to knock
Fox-
the
Echo
bottom
Fox out.
3.
Yeah,
Fox-
it's only
one.
two.
Yeah, you're right.
There's two that are safe now. How the new system works. Two
Right,
teams
yeah.
don't
Two
go to
safe.
playoffs, but they don't go to relegation.
Right. I was thinking there's only one safe team.
No.
Like there used to be, and that was confusing me. You're right.
And so,
So yeah, they do have to be better than Echo Fox at that point.
and that's
which might be more
tough. I mean,
difficult.
but I think
Right.
it's within the realm of possibility.
I don't know. They did look really good this week, though. So with good
Yeah,
staff, I
and-
mean, they definitely have the raw talent to do really well. They just definitely, I think the staff is pretty huge. So
Right. And on the other
they seem
side
to
of
very
that,
much work this. They look like a completely different team this week.
yeah. On the other side
It's
of
all-
that, you have
it
Echo
also
Fox.
shows. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
On the other side of that, you have Echo Fox, who really did not have a fun time playing League of Legends this week. Yeah, 0-2. They're now 4-6. Not like terrible showings in the games. Like Acadia didn't pop off as much as you'd want. But really, the classic problem with Echo Fox right now is kind of what always has been their problem. In that they do have good individual talent, but when it transitions into the mid to late game, if you're not so far ahead, you have just really bad communication, really bad shot calling, almost a confused direction that the game goes in, and everything falls apart. So like week 4, when that was playing against CLG, who hasn't really been looking super hot, and TSM, who fell susceptible to the exaggerated early game that ended up clearing out the rest, you had a very hard time. Yet, when you have to go up against so you've got matches against Envy and Immortals. You lose both. You shouldn't lose the game against Envy. You should be able to transition all points in the game in favor against Envy. There's zero excuse there. But at least Immortals, that despite them not having the best success, at least they can control the game, and so you kind of expect that loss. So, I mean, if they had beat Envy, they would have been tied with Immortals, and their playoff position would be looking much better. Now they have to worry about Dignitas sniffing around, potentially overtaking them, and I guess at this point they're more or less, the guard in that sense. If they can potentially keep Dig down. But now not next week, because technically there's like a gap because of IEM. You have Cloud9 and you have Liquid. So again, it should be like a 1-in-1 week for you. But if Liquid does manage to put together some semblance of a game, you might actually lose that one too. Which at that point, that's very, very bad, because you're giving Liquid a way back out of the relegation tournament, and that's not a super good thing. But let's move right up to Immortals, Mr. Kris.
Mortals. Let's see. So yeah, Echo Fox, they just did not have a fun time in this series at all either. It's like Immortals, I'm not really sure where they're still going to go. Like I'm kind of actually curious to see what you guys will think about Immortals with too. Is if they're going to be bottom of the barrel, or if they're actually going to be able to do something. Because this week they were still able to do something, but yeah, it's like they're so inconsistent. Like they remind me a lot of just like when CLG was really fumbling in like relegation status back in season 3, was that or whatever? Like when CLG was
season 4.
Season 4, yeah, it was just like, what the hell are they doing? Because every single game is just like all over the place. It's like they have no target. They just seem like a complete clusterfuck while playing. So it'll be really hard for them, I think, to come out of this at this point. Like they did good in this one, but was this week really that good enough for them? Like the CLG game was pretty close, and at least it was fun to watch, like in a certain series. Like, but CLG is back, and they seem to really just punched the crap out of them. And it was, I don't know, they just like, how did this team really just go from being sort of top tierish to as so bottom in the barrel as they are so much? Like they kind of remind me.
They lost their entire team.
It's true. Well, I mean, I know they lost their entire team, but I was about to say they remind me of like a bit of an origins of NA, where it's like they have that one really good split, they do really well, and then they just shit the bed continuously forever. Like Huhi also, by the way, can apparently play Zed, because he just absolutely pummeled Pobelter. He really showed Pobelter.
Isn't he
what it was
known
like
to be
play
an
Zed.
assassin player though?
He is.
So
He's
yeah,
extremely
but
good
it's just
on LeBlanc and Zed and others.
So
yeah,
we should
it's just
start,
weird seeing him again.
We should
on
start
that.
calling them, if they're the origin of NA, we should start calling them Emor House.
Immortals, because that's pretty much what they are. Like they just, I don't know. I don't have a lot of hope for them. Like they did okay against Echo Fox, but I mean that's not really saying much.
From what I can tell, they live and die by whether or not Dardoch is hard feeding or whether or not Dardoch is ahead of the jungler. And Dardoch does more hard feeding than not. Their bot lane is fucking garbage in lane, and outside of lane, Cody's Sun's usually not very good. Their vision game is fucking garbage. I don't know what Ole's doing half the time. Pobelter looks like, I don't know, a guy who couldn't make the Curse Academy team. I don't know what's going on with him, too. Because sometimes he'll look actually really good, and then most of the time Pobelter just looks like garbage.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened.
Like in that CLG game, that's ganks bottom. Like their play calls too. Like when they just walked on a turret with no minions, with like 4 of them. Like they went for kind of this pseudo gank, had no idea what they were doing, all ran out and gave 2 kills back to CLG. It was like they have these almost good plays and then completely fuck it up, and they do it consistently. It's very weird.
I think their confidence is just so low, and they're not clinical enough as players because a lot of them are extremely young. It's Cody Sun's first split. Ole, new split in a new area. Flame, new split, new area. Dardoch, fucking Tilt Master 5000.
Yeah.
Like,
and from what you can see during like the games and the comms, it does look like Dardoch is doing the most talking. So whether that's just straight raw information pump or if that's him actually being in the shot calling position, to have somebody who's so susceptible to tilt makes it kind of a difficult thing to find success on. What's really not working for their favor right now is their schedule going forward. So next week they get all their easy games out of the way. They have Liquid and they have Envy. But then every week after that, you have FlyQuest. You have FlyQuest TSM week 7. Week 8, you have Cloud9, Phoenix 1. Week 9, you have Dignitas and CLG. So, you know, that 2-week period where you're facing all teams who are higher than you, and then by the end, very important games for who is going to matter, who's going to make it into playoffs or not. You would hope that they'd have a bit more of a balanced schedule. Because it does
really have no idea how they'll beat any of those teams the way they're playing.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them. But let's keep it moving. So tied currently with Immortals and having a pretty good week. Mr. Sean, you got CLG 5-5.
woo! All right, so when we talked about CLG in the past, and by the past I mean the first 1, 2, 3, and 4 weeks of the split, I kept mentioning, you know, we need to see how they look at the halfway point and if there's a turnaround there, because that's going to determine what CLG we're actually going to be looking at. We're also going to want to see what happens with patch 7.3. So we saw both of those happen this week. They were on patch 7.3, so you had some nerfs to Kha'Zix, you had some nerfs in the jungle, which opened up a lot of different things for Xmithy, which is huge. And then you also had some nerfs on other, you know, really strong champs. On top of that, CLG just got significantly better at the pick and ban. Just in general, there were a couple things where they were a little odd, but they played against both Immortals and Team Liquid this week. So 2 teams that looked at least at the beginning as middle of the pack teams. Immortals pretty much cemented right in there, but Team Liquid has obviously fallen from the grace of God and man over the weekend. So the CLG series against Immortals was overall a decent series. Huhi was a fucking god, though. Huhi destroyed Pobelter again and again and again. It got to be so bad that I forgot what game we were watching when I'd watch highlights. I couldn't tell which one was which because Huhi was just dicking Pobelter.
Yeah, he got that first blood against him and then just punished him for the rest of the series. Like,
yeah. He's showing up again and again consistently to the point where if you are not on the Huhi Stixay train, like, then fuck off, because both of those guys have been top 2, top 3 in their position over the past entire split. Stixay is a top 280 carry along with Arrow. And I think Huhi is making a case to be right underneath. I think you got Jensen as S tier, and then maybe A tier you've got Bjergsen, who's been struggling a bit, and right below them is probably Huhi and Ryu going neck for neck. with Froggen maybe right below.
The unfortunate thing about that, though, is that when they're on teams who are being so inconsistent, it's hard to see, the forest through the trees on that. I think what's really going to make or break their performances for most of these teams is when it comes down to playoffs, because that's when games are going to be a lot more decisive. Teams are going to have to bring their best, and it's when it all really matters, especially in the top tier this week. I think we saw a lot of teams take weighted risks, knowing that dropping a few games wasn't going to be that big of a deal. And it's in that era that CLG is starting to prosper, which is good to see, because if they can keep continuing to improve, we know that they have the mentality to make it to playoffs and keep a level head. And then if they can make it that far, they can maybe even go a little bit further and potentially try to contest like a quarterfinal or a semifinal or even a final spot.
I think you're looking at a team that's right now is middle of the pack at the midway point in the split. They're a team that is looking better than the other teams. They just beat Immortals.
Yep.
And when they won, and even on the game that they lost, they were doing very well. They just fucked up. And a little slip, is okay as long as you're going to win the series, right?
Right.
Like that's the sort of mentality you want to have as a top team anyway. They're starting to get their confidence back. What I'm loving more than anything is the fact that they are willing to make picks in general that other teams aren't doing. Soraka has been pulled out by Aphromu 3 times this weekend.
Yep.
4 times. It was either 3 or 4 times this weekend. All of them were wins. And that's a champ that has not been picked by any other NA team. I think EU team as well, but I'm not as well versed in that. So they're starting to do things that aren't the meta. And this is where CLG thrives, when they're able to do things that aren't exactly as they are expected to be. Because they're very, very good on certain champs and certain compositions and certain choices. And then when they try to change and acclimate to how other things are, that's when things get into a little disarray. So they're able to now understand the meta well enough to bring it back and use their own strengths within it without even necessarily using the meta itself, but still playing around in it. The fact that Xmithy got a win on Rengar is fucking incredible.
He had a good game too.
Garbage. Yeah, even after forgetting to goddamn buy a goddamn jungle starting item, which was just like mind-blowing. But they won, so who gives a shit, right? Yeah, I mean, I think they were both 2-1 series. They lost one game, and the one game was kind of close. The Team Liquid game that they won, they did kind of run over CLG, but then CLG's both wins against them were just dominant. So good wins, necessary wins to stay middle of the pack and show that they are a top 5 team, which is all you really need to be doing at this point. And as long as they can continue to acclimate to the patches as they come, which I think is the biggest worry for a lot of these teams, I think we're looking at very easily a playoff team again, and potentially a top 4 team.
So next week is kind of a trying week for them because they have Phoenix One and TSM. How do you see them coming out of this week?
Honestly, I see them winning against Phoenix One. I think Phoenix One, in a lot of ways, does very, very similar things. They both have excellent AD carries who are able to change fights. I think it's really interesting because Arrow prioritizes the Varus pick, and Stixxay prioritizes the Jhin pick. Stixxay is phenomenal on Jhin, and Arrow is absolutely fantastic on Varus. So I'm really excited to see a matchup if they allow both AD carries to pick this, their relative ones. I do think this matchup is going to be really decided in the jungle. Whether or not Xmithy is forced onto a Rengar or whether or not he can take a Graves or a Lee Sin. His Lee is fantastic, always has been, and was exceptionally good this weekend. But if he's forced to take a power pick because picks and bans dictate it, so that the other team doesn't have it, I think it could be rough. It depends on also what P1 jungler is playing. If it's Meteos, that's a completely different P1 from a jungler or an Inori jungle. You're going to be far less aggressive in the early game, but overall decision-making seemed a lot safer and smarter from P1 when Meteos was in. So it's really interesting to see. I'm not sure who's going to be playing. I don't think anyone knows as of yet. But a win against a Meteos team, I think, is a better odds. We should win against a Meteos team. If it's against Inori and we can force him off of the Rengar and we don't have to pick it either, that would be fantastic. So yeah, I think we'd win that. TSM's looking like the best team in NA. I don't expect them to do more than maybe take a game off.
Let's move it on up to Phoenix 1 then. We hit a little bit of them. The change with Inori was questionable, but Kris, how'd Meteos do this week?
It was actually pretty funny. First game to start off with, one against Envious, was just a sad game of League of Legends. Match 1 versus Envious versus P1 was a 57-minute long game. It was basically an entire game showing how bad Envious could not. They couldn't win a game. They actually still had the gold lead when they lost 99k to 97k. So it was awkward. It was very, very awkward. But then after that was like the warm up match for Meteos, because then he just pretty much went off for the rest of the week. Match 2, P1 versus Envious, was a 29-minute game. So they just completely pummeled them into oblivion. Just no way of coming back. And then, of course, the C9 game. So the C9 series was strange for me. I did not expect this to go in this way whatsoever. I was watching this game and was just sort of like, okay, so C9's kind of fucking up a lot for the first game, but we'll see what ends up happening here, because Impact was just playing like shit in this series. He's just not doing too much on Gragas. It's pretty much not out of there. And Meteos was just going to town on Rengar, 2-2-10. Versus Contract 0-2-3 was just all over the map, and Arrow is just awesome. Like Arrow, in my opinion, like Arrow is close. It's him and Sneaky. I think it's him, Sneaky, and sometimes depending on Stix as well, could be really up there. And the 80 carries. Like he's really good.
Bullshit.
Not
Sneaky
after
has
this
been
series.
So bad this split. Sneaky has been so bad.
Well, C9 hasn't necessarily been, so it's kind of one of those, if he's been doing well on his team. But Arrow is fucking awesome, though, is what we've definitely learned in this one.
I have him on my fantasy team. He has not been doing that.
Oh, well, that sucks. Should have possibly Arrow on your team instead, because Arrow definitely clearly showed he was the better AD carry in this. 5-0-6 as Jin versus Sneaky's 3-1-5. And then game 2 of C9 versus P1, like after the game 1, where it was just a 43-minute game, pretty good. But then game 2 was just 27-minute game. Like they just beat the crap out of them. I mean, it was there's so many kills and deaths in this too. It's 17-11 already. So it's just like, it was super exciting game. Definitely recommend watching this series if you didn't, just because I wasn't expecting it to be nearly as just exciting as it was. So the question will be is if P1 is going to be with Meteos or not, because they were clearly a different team with Meteos than they were in Ori. Not to say Nori's awful, but
Nori's
Meteos
not bad.
No, but it was just like Meteos clearly showed to be a much more well-rounded jungler in that sense. Like can play more roles. And Ori's really good at his kind of one-trick pony thing, but
I don't think it's good for the long-term success of Phoenix 1 to keep playing with Meteos, because I don't think that's going to be a permanent roster swap. I don't think Cloud9's going to be willing to change that over. There is
Darth Meteos.
There is an existing rule right now where they can't change out Meteos for another, so counting this week for another 2 weeks. So Inori doesn't have to come back for another 2 weeks worth of LCS play, but Meteos will be there for that long at the very least. But overall, pretty solid week out of P1. I don't see them, and I think we can all agree, dropping out of playoff contentions at this point. You'd have to have Immortals and CLG overtake you, and then have either Dig or Fox Immortals and CLG overtake you at that point. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so you'd have to have those two teams overtake you, and then either Fox or Dignitas bump you out.
It is weird though. Like it is definitely one of those, like, I don't know how to judge them. You're right with this Meteos thing. If he's on there for too long, then it's like they're gonna start. I don't know. It's weird having Meteos be on there if he's just not going to be on there permanently. Because they might just get really good with Meteos, have Inori come back in, and then just suck.
It was good of Cloud9 to give him up for the couple of games. Like, it's big out of them to say, like, yeah, we have a very good jungler on our sub. You can absolutely take him for a little bit. That's fine. Questionable how that got through the Riot system of rules, but hey, it happened. So
Super weird.
let's move right on up then. We've got Fly Quest.
Yeah.
Not good.
Disappointing weekend for FlyQuest.
How do you feel about Shaco, Blake?
I was really hyped when I saw him pick it.
I was fucking terrified.
That's pretty much where I'll end my comment. I don't know. I feel like he definitely could have played it better. It's hard to tell with a character like Shaco whether it's the character or the player playing the character, because it was legitimately the textbook definition of a 4v5. He was a non-factor in that game.
Yeah, 0, 4, and 1.
What I thought was so interesting was the Shaco pick, especially in competitive play, is a lot similar to the Eve pick in that it's a champion that should be able to roam from lane to lane without being seen at all, has a really interesting jungle pathing to start, doesn't offer really much in the way of CC, but offers a shit ton of damage instead. But he was even more invisible than if he was playing Eve. It's
funny you say that, because
brutal.
it was literally like before he picked that champ, there was a little interview that they played with him. Like literally 2 minutes before he locked in Shaco, and it was him saying, "Oh yeah, like, you know, I really like playing Eve, and it takes a lot to be good on Eve, and it's taken me a long time." And she's similar to Shaco in that way, where it's taken me a long time. It's taken me a long time. Like, he literally said that.
Similar to Shaco. Wink.
Yeah, and so that was upsetting.
Hey, that high pentakill though, game 2.
Well, that was astounding. I mean, game 2 was such a fun game to watch because FlyQuest, yes, I mean, they never just give up. They always just claw for whatever blood they can get. And in game 2, they were gonna lose that game, but then they did this really they were gonna lose the game, and then Hai did this amazing pentakill on Orianna that it was the second of the split, right? I can't really describe it. You kind of just got to go watch it. It wasn't just him sitting in the back line and just
one
finishing.
of the guys went pew pew, and then he threw the ball, and then these other guys all came in, and then some other things happened, and then he used the thing and went and then pew pew. Sorry, I saw Lego Batman this weekend, and they make a lot
made
of
that
finger gun
such
noises.
a clear picture in my mind. Do
You're
you
welcome.
podcast by any chance?
I do. In fact, you should check out the T-Force LCS rundown.
Oh no, I heard terrible things. So
I heard they couldn't stay on track to save their lives.
anyway, go watch that pentakill. It was astounding. It wasn't just him sitting in the back finishing off people and getting the last hit. It was him honestly like 1v5ing. It was and just dancing. And then what?
I was gonna say, as good as Hai's shot calling was at the end of the game to make the call to be able to end the game,
that was so clutch.
He did not shot call very well for the 20 minutes before that.
They didn't do that very well on the Dignitas series either. That's what was
they ran down mid. I think it was twice, trying to just brute force end the game, and both times they got completely flanked and almost lost the game off of it. It was like,
he constantly kept making calls that were like, either this will work but there's a small chance of it, or we'll get completely punished for it and it won't work. And
all they had to do was split to the side lane.
Here's the thing. I'm going to go kind of high level on this. I think it was fucking brilliant to do that. And here's why. FlyQuest as a team doesn't have a lot to lose right now. They're high enough in the standings where you can reasonably, assume they're going to get pretty decent seeding in playoffs. I'm trying to think, did TSM beat Cloud9 before or after this matchup? They had already beaten Cloud9. Okay, so this changes it slightly, but not enough to make a difference. So, you're really high up in the standings. You've had very good success. I say, do some funky ass shit. Like, don't cheese and just like throw games left and right, but like make some pretty daring calls that are objectively focused and see if it works out. And if it doesn't work out, whatever, like you're still doing fine. But if it does work out, you look like a genius. And I think that call to win game 2 was one of those calls. We're either going to look great because we just shot called around this fight, or we're going to look terrible because we just tried to run it in and lost. Same thing with pushing down the towers. Like, hey, TSM hasn't looked this like that put together this split. Let's try to see if we can push them out. Let's see if we can just do some ridiculous call that ends up, shifting the game and seeing how far we can go with it. And I think FlyQuest can afford it. They can afford the Shaco. They can afford high on Jarvan a billion times. Why not?
Also, oddly enough, to be fair, the insane mid lane focus of that game was part of the only reasons why they were able to defend at the end. Was because they had focused everything they had on the mid lane. So in a weird way, it did work. But it's so weird to say something worked when it required such a clutch. Good on Balls to do that at the end there. He did a really nice clutch interrupt of a TP.
He did a nice clutch fail flash.
Yeah, it was a fun series to watch. I think no matter what side of the fence.
Yeah, it's upsetting. It is upsetting, but I think that they're gonna realize they don't like the feeling of losing, and this is gonna kick them in the ass. Maybe they'll finally start taking people more seriously.
Honestly, though, that's such an important thing to have. And that's we're going to talk about it when we get to Cloud9. We're not quite there yet. But it is so important to have losses in your spread to test your team and to fully understand how you operate. Because you need to be able to shot call from behind. You need to go into a game after losing. You need to be able to deal with those high pressure situations if you're ever going to gel as a team. And this was a great opportunity for them to experience that. I mean, not to say that Balls High and Lemon need, it's not like they need to learn how to lose, but the new management, everything has to work under this new system, and losses are a part of that. Well, let's talk about another team who lost a couple times this week, Cloud9.
All right. Well, all around, I think anyone that's a Cloud9 fan is pretty disappointed with this week. Definitely not what I expected going into it. Would you like to say something, Sean?
No, they're probably feeling great.
No, in all seriousness, C9 actually did not look very good. They, versus TSM, looked a lot worse than I expected. And versus P1, even worse than versus TSM. They just looked completely disorganized and just out of it as a team. Jensen was the only one showing up on the entire team. Impact looked like garbage the entire weekend. And Sneaky as well, like Sean said earlier, he hasn't really looked that good the entire split, and he didn't look very good in those games either. As much as I love him, he's not showing up the way that he needs to this split. But yeah, I really feel like Impact was the biggest reason that they didn't, their draft phase as well as Impact are the two biggest reasons that they didn't do very well this weekend. One, they had really bad drafts. Versus TSM in game 3, they played a comp with no tank, and the entire story of that series was whoever has the tank on this team wins. TSM plays a comp with no tank, and they get not destroyed, but it showed that they had no tank. It was really hard for them to team fight. And then C9, game 3, very next game, plays a comp with no tank, and they can't do it. And it just does not look good. And a lot of that was because Impact did not show up on Rumble. He got caught out, I think, 2 or 3 times in lane for no reason. I think there was one point where he got caught under tower by a Shin taunt and just died 1v1. You can't be doing that. And so Impact just really didn't look good. C9's drafts didn't really look good. And their overall gameplay they just looked like a lost team. And so what I really want to see from them is for them to just sit down and come up with early game strategies for them to use. Stop sitting back and waiting for stuff to happen and actually go into the game. And I'm sure they do have strategies. That would be stupid of them not to. But have a definitive 2 or 3 strategies to say, hey, this is what we want to do. And if this doesn't work, then we have a backup strategy. And I think that is what Cloud9 has to do now. Until this point, they didn't really have to because they had been strong enough after the laning phase to make up for it. But now that teams seem to have been catching up to that, Cloud9 really has to work on their early game or else they're going to start falling in the standings.
I mean, it's not too far to fall. Like, they've got, they're tied for first place at this point. They have a 1-1 with TSM, and that's done now because we're over that hump of every team having to play every team. I'd say their biggest threat at this point is FlyQuest, who also had a bad week. So when that comes down, that's really as best as that's really the biggest match for them to I guess fail at, because they're 8-2. FlyQuest is 6-4. They did bad, but they're not gonna drop a game to Immortals.
Hopefully.
Yeah, knock on wood. But
I wouldn't say that.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. TSM on the other side of that coin having a really good week. Obviously, I think last week I said that I wasn't expecting much out of them and that I figured it could be an 0-2 week, probably would be an 0-2 week. And that was, I'd say, to everybody else's, wildest dreams, a very accurate statement, because FlyQuest is a good team and Cloud9 is a good team. TSM managed to pull it out, and I'm pretty happy about that. Wild Turtles still make stupid mistakes, like flashing over walls, and I guess being the tank for the team, at least in an aggro sense, so that we burst him down,
hey,
but then
worked, dude.
The rest of it gets
worked.
lost. It doesn't he even loves the joke, he laughs at it, but at the same time it's hey man, imagine if that had gone any other way, you would look like garbage still.
There's this Reddit comment that I think describes it perfectly. Is Wild Turtle, Game 1. Hey guys, watch me 360 no-scope this arrow. Game 2. Hey guys, watch me 720 no-scope this arrow. Game 3. All right, I'll just aim my arrow.
I don't think I saw him land a single one.
Yeah, but Bjergsen did get a pentakill this week.
Oh, he hit him in Game 3. He hit some massive.
No, yeah, Game 3 actually looked good.
I think it was against Cloud9, right? That they got the pentakill. It was on Orianna. Game 1,
yes.
8-0-2, stellar performance. And yeah, I mean, it's good times right now. To me, this lead feels pretty good. If they can keep at least second place, I'm happy. But they still, as a team, have a lot of work to do on them. And I think it's more the weaknesses that came out of the league that brought them here than TSM really looking at the top of their game. But that's that's kind of where we're at right now with North America. Playoffs is still a very, very real thing for most of these teams. Literally, because Liquid. 6 out of 10 have to be in playoffs.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
But there are still hopes for Echo Fox and Dignitas, I think. There is that glimmer of hope that Dardoch tilts off the face of the earth after 2 weeks of just terrible, terrible play. We can only hope. But
you're not one of those, right, Mont? You don't hope for that. You hope the best for Dardoch.
I'd like to see Dignitas be successful.
I'd like to see this young child who's put his whole life on hold to follow his dreams succeed, maybe.
Yeah.
No, stomp all over his dreams.
No, he's just a little shithead cock.
Dardoch or Forgiven, Mont? Which one? If you had to choose to join TSM, what would?
Wait. Hold on.
Do I have to choose?
You're locked in a room
with
Hitler, Dardoch, and Forgiven.
Very fucked
and you have a gun with 2 bullets. Which 2 do you kill?
Here's
Wild
the
turtle.
question: what year is it?
Wild turtle.
It's present year, America.
Because like I feel like a worse punishment for Hitler would be to like show the meme he has become in all of the years. So maybe I don't
I think
kill
the worst
anybody.
punishment for Hitler was
1939.
I think the worst punishment for Hitler was losing the war. Actually,
Forgiven last year. Dardock literally any time in his life. I don't care.
Just have Dardock flame the fuck out of Hitler.
Here's what
And
makes
that'll
me
be
mad.
the punishment.
Here's the real reason. Here's the real reason why I don't like Dardock so much. It's because he's good, and if he acted more professionally, grew into a much better player, he could actually be like a top contending talent. And it sucks to see somebody
you
waste
sound like Mickey from Rocky.
waste their
Oh, come on,
potential.
Rock! I know you got it in ya.
No, he doesn't have him in it. He doesn't have it in him. That's the problem. Like, dude, I don't see it going anywhere, man. No one's going to want to work with that after a while. Someone will have to. Like, Immortals is going to have a jungler. But hopefully he doesn't tilt so far that he can never come back.
He tilts his way out of the LCS.
Yeah. Speaking of tilting off the face of the earth, pretty much everybody tilted off of IEM this upcoming IEM Katowice.
Yeah, because a fucking international tournament, as much as everyone wants international tournaments, in the middle of a goddamn split?
Yep.
Fuck
And
that.
C9 noped the fuck out of there. EDG noped the fuck out of there.
Well, EDG I don't think wanted
EDG
to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But still.
Did
that's
you see the
they
post
didn't
from the
want
Polish
it.
government saying they
yeah.
just never received anything for EDG?
I still
like-
didn't
Yeah,
understand
they
how
didn't
people
wanna
can't
go.
figure that out.
They didn't want to go.
See, like it sucks for IEM right now because it is a lot for an organization to completely pull out of the routine of the LCS and then hop over to this international tournament that doesn't mean anything and then come back to it and expect to continue to do well. Especially where really no team is looking like they're on solid ground. It's just a lot to ask. And so this upcoming IEM next week is when it's happening. There isn't actually any LCS played that week. Everybody gets a week off. So I did want to just kind of bring this up before we transition over to Europe, since only European teams will be featured there. We're looking at HDK, Unicorns of
shitty
Love, and
Korean
G2.
teams.
Yeah. It's gonna be an interesting tournament. I don't know that we'll cover this in the typical LCS rundown fashion that you've come to know and love. I think we might do something a little fun for that episode.
If we fucking do a trivia one again.
We
Oh, that went so well the first time.
As a listener, that was fantastic. I enjoyed the hell out of that.
I know it's a really fun experience. It's just fucking hell to put together and do. Okay, I'll put it this way. If we ever do a trivia again, I will at least let you know the data set that I'm pulling from so you can
That was horrific, dude.
at least not have the excuse that I didn't do that, because I know none of you will actually study. You'll just be like, oh, okay, here
Bitch,
it comes.
you don't know me.
I
Actually,
believe
Sean
you
will
called it
probably-
general
Sean
knowledge.
will study.
You called
and
it
he
general
will
knowledge
annihilate
questions,
us.
and then wanted to know like very specific stats about fucking like birth dates. And
Yeah. What year was Laud not only created,
Well, Blake would probably know that.
when was his conception date?
What?
And we're all just gonna
What
be like,
was the weather like on the day that he first made his own homemade gingerbread?
What were the other three names that
General
Laud's
knowledge,
parents were
boys.
considering for his first name?
Aframu played Soraka this year. Name 3 other people living in Korea.
I'm gonna go back to that. You know, by the way, that there are like fans listening to that trivia episode and be like, I cannot fucking believe you guys aren't getting these questions right.
Dude,
Why
that was
are
me.
you on
yeah,
this
That was
show?
me when I
absolutely.
was listening to this. I got like almost
here
every
you
single
are.
question right. I was like,
See that?
fuck yeah. I
My
got this.
problem-
Yeah, we're gonna do this now.
My problem was so many questions were about the network, and I don't listen to podcasts.
And that's when I listened. I listened to the Trinity Force proper. I listened to the LCS round, and I listened to 4 Words during that time period. And so I got fucking everything about the network right.
See, that makes me fucking smile. But no, I think what we're going to do is rather than attempt to have like a normal sit down episode and do it, we're going to stream it. And we're just going to play games and talk about the tournament.
That means all the outtakes are going to be like live
well,
streamed.
it's not going to be like a podcast format because that doesn't work. Like, hey, help me out top. Okay. All right, I'm going in. Yeah, so what did you guys think about G2? Oh, okay, hold on. No, I got her. Like, that's not good podcasting. But maybe, like, we'll stream it. We'll put it up on YouTube. If you haven't checked us out on YouTube, please check us out on YouTube. I need more views.
The shameless plug. Dropping it hot.
Yeah.
Mod has no shame.
Yeah.
There's no shame.
Fucking dude, I've been doing this for too long to have any shame. So that will be an interesting tournament. It is going to feature some of the European teams that we're going to talk about right now. But check that out next week. If you're only a podcast listener, stop it, go on our YouTube and watch that. Very, very funny games where we talk about IEM and don't talk about it in normal podcast format. But let's talk about Group 2 of EU. Nothing has changed until we talk about Unicorns of Love. Roccat, still terrible. Can't wait till week 7. Hype, Origin versus Roccat. Worst of the worst.
So excited for that matchup.
I think I will actually like make all of you pre-record a 2-minute segment about your team that I will assemble later, and then we are going to have a solid 45 just on this like play-by-play.
Can we please?
We're just going to do that matchup.
We need to have one episode specifically dedicated to that series.
That is probably actually what's going to happen.
Yes!
So get ready for that, because that's going to be the pillow fight of the century. Like,
what if it ends up being the fucking best series of all time, the most nail-biting? Both teams surprise us with their play.
Or we're all going to be sitting there and we're going to get into the episode and be like, oh my god, guys, my brain doesn't function anymore. That was the worst League of Legends I'd ever seen watch.
Can we all just agree, if possible, we should all get into Discord during the game and we should watch it together and drink?
I think the only way we could do that is if we didn't do it until later on that day.
That night.
And then,
dude, let's do it, man.
Like, no one can watch it. Don't look up spoilers.
We'll pull up the VOD.
I'm fine with that.
We'll pull up the VOD. We'll put it on YouTube Sync, and then we'll make sure we're all watching it at the exact same time.
Are we talking like a drinking game kind of thing? Because that could be very fun.
Oh, fuck, we're recording this. Oh, my God, it's going to be so good. The only way we won't do this, which I think that it's now become too good not to do, but the only way I wouldn't want to do it is if Roccat or Origin somehow pulls out a win.
Well, how do we do? How do we know if we avoided spoilers, Mont?
No, I mean coming up. Like it.
I see what you're saying.
That's happening March 9th. So that's not next week's series of games, week 6 for EU, which pops off from March 2nd to March 4th. That's the next week.
Okay.
So
let's see who they play until then. So Origin plays Misfits and Roccat plays UOL next week, so that we don't have to worry about that.
Pretty much,
So then after that, it's game 1.
Oh God!
On Thursday,
Pillow Watch
March 9th.
2017. Hype. Let's get through these groups though in Europe, because if we keep talking about future episodes, I'm just going to get too excited and just end the episode right now. Roccat, nothing to talk about. Pretty garbage. We'll be doing a whole episode on them later. So next, let's talk about Giants.
They played H2K this week, and they lost 0-2. And Pepe watch. Pepe is still shown no sign
of returning.
Man, that sucks. Like, honestly, at least if we were playing in all one like regular split for these teams, you'd at least say like Giants has some pretty good matchups that they could look at potentially against Vitality again, or potentially, against Rocket and Origin more. Nope. You just get to not play a ton of games. And like when you have a week where you have to play a super good team and that's the only game that you have to look forward to and you get stomped, that's like a week of your time that you just lost.
And then they have to just sort of sit around for a week, and who's scrimming them? Origin and Rocket, right? And that's the practice they're getting.
Yeah. Sucks, man.
That's probably, honestly, we don't talk about that enough. The worst part of being a bottom tier team is probably the fact that you don't get to scrim anyone except potentially other shitty
It's a negative
teams.
feedback
and even they do it begrudgingly. Yeah. Unless you're like Echo Fox and somehow you're scrimming your challenger team and actually beating other teams, but that's like few and far between.
Well, and it doesn't always work. I think what the problem becomes, like, you kind of have to, as an organization, when you get to this point, figure out where you're going to cut your losses and what your goals are going to be. Because when you're, this far into the split, you only have one win on your mantelpiece, but there's still two teams that are like much, much worse than you. You really only need to beat those two other teams and live by that. And you're not going to make it to playoffs, sure. You're not going to get any championship points, sure, but you're at least going to hold your head above water. And I think like Giants just has to kind of take that approach to things. And someone in a similar vein to that right now, potentially is Fnatic. They at least have the bait of playoffs ahead of them. But when you're dropping a game to Splice, which that was a super important matchup for Fnatic to win, because like right now, like that's, they're on their way out of the intergroup play. They're only going to play a team like Splice once. They're evenly matched in the standings, and at that point I think they were actually on top of Splice in wins. If you can win that spot out, like that's adding a lot of clout to your team when it comes to playoffs, but you lose that. It's just not like a super good spot for Fnatic to be in, and not having a ton of games to go off of, not playing as many games as you possibly could in at this point in the split. I think if you look at all of the games that have been played, they're on like week 4 for the LCS if they were playing in their normal fashion, just by the amount of matchups. Like that's asinine. It's just not a good system to flourish in. Like Caps has a lot of work to grow up to his baby faker name. He'll probably continue throughout the split to have like a decent performance here or there, but overall, like Fnatic has some big organizational problems that they haven't been able to shake off since really the loss of Yellow Star, like forever ago.
And Daylor.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot
well,
more
like that was
by this point too.
It was dominoes at that point. Like Yellow Star is the big first loss. Daylor
doesn't
came
that
almost a year
Fnatic
after.
from that Fnatic that was like people thought they were going to be the ones that would win Worlds? Doesn't that just seem like a
Forever
weird,
ago?
So far away.
lucid dream? Like,
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, not like I'm trying to think of other really, really good.
It doesn't seem like it was 2 years ago. That's for sure.
Fnatic won Worlds, fucking season 1. How about that? Like, that's the crazy thing, and here they are.
Cash
now.
me outside. How about that? Gotta make this one relevant, boys. Gotta really ground it in the times.
Speaking about Catch Me Outside, let's talk about Misfits. Huh? How'd you like that
Man.
transition? She's kind of a misfit, isn't she?
So this week is a good week for Misfits. But they're up against Vitality, so it's not really saying much. Vitality is fucking garbage. This almost was too, like, if Misfits had just played a little bit cleaner and, like, not, like, they didn't need to play any cleaner, they could have had 2 perfect games this week against Vitality. Like, game 1 was super close, and game 2 was still pretty close. It just fucking ridiculous. They were just playing. God, I don't know how Vitality can be this bad, but I think it says a lot for Misfits that they're playing so cleanly in this. Like, I don't know how much more to really say. Hansama pulled out the Draven again, which was awesome. I love seeing anyone play Draven. I really want to see Arrow pull it out on P1 because I think that'll be fucking delicious if it does. And then Vitality just let them win. Like, game 2 especially, with the worst fucking draft I'd ever seen. Ever. Giving up Camille, Malzahar, and Rengar over to Misfits. Just insane. Just easy series. Fucking not much to say.
I'm trying to think. Did Misfits square off against H2K yet?
I don't think so.
I'm trying to find out when they do that. Because to me,
pretty sure they haven't.
It's not for a while. It's week 7. To me, that's kind of a big.
No, it's next week. Yeah, it's next week.
Yeah,
or no, 2 weeks.
To me, that's kind of a big deal because right now, if they can look to really keep up this win streak and continue to do super well, I mean, yeah, you've got the likes of Unicorns of Love and G2 in the mix that you're going to eventually have to tackle. But, you know, if you can keep your head above water on H2K, you might be able to continue to find success and at least contest for the semifinals spot.
I don't know. I really think Misfits is going to take second overall.
I think Misfits is top 3 team.
Yeah, I think they have a good chance of beating UOL on Thursday, game 1 Thursday. And if H2K is really going to have to pull some shit together if they want to beat Misfits the week after.
Yeah, I think you've got a pretty clear hierarchy where G2's the top team. I don't think anyone disputes that. Nope. Then I think you've got Misfits right underneath them. And then underneath Misfits, I think you've got H2K, UOL, and then Splice right underneath them. And those 3 are the ones who are really battling.
Okay, right underneath them. But yeah, it's the...
Yes.
You've got Unicorns and H2K on the same level, and then just above them is Misfits, and just above them is G2.
Yes. And
then, yeah, it's... Europe, like, if they didn't have this weird 2-group system would be... Like, that's almost exactly what you'd see. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Well, let's keep going up the rung then. G2, the top of Group A, still undefeated. What are you thinking about this series?
Well, I think that I was expecting more out of Unicorns.
Out of the top lane?
Yeah. Like, yeah, Unicorns, they really didn't.
It sounded like the sound that Mott made physically hurt Ian.
Oh, fuck. I'm sorry I stole your thunder, by the way. I just couldn't stop.
No, it's fine. Oh, my God. But overall...
Wait. I'm not done yet. Keep going.
But I was really expecting more from Unicorns. I thought that the quality of play was going to be a lot higher. I know they've always been this scrappy kind of team that isn't super conventional and does things their way, but I thought it was going to be a little more conventional than what it was. What we ended up seeing was Unicorns just trying to force things really, really hard, and whenever it didn't work, they just kind of said, well, what do we do now? Oh, let's try and force something else. And whenever it didn't work, it kept not working, and it snowballed against them, and they ended up losing. Especially in game 1. I think the biggest example of that was whenever G2 was taking Baron, it's like, okay, you lose Baron, you're probably going to lose the game. What do you want to do? And so you either have the option of doing what a lot of teams would do, which is just kind of sit in your base, let them take Baron, maybe try and contest it a little bit, and see if you can find a team fight after they take it. Or you can do what Unicorns did and take a 5-man Rise ult into the Baron pit, get aced, and then lose the game.
Hey, but at least they like cut out. They cut out that 15-minute period where they get strangled to death.
They ended the game quick. They did it for the fans. But then also, game 2 was kind of the same thing. The Unicorns had a lead in that game. It was the Skara Coast saying where up until they lose the game, they're winning. And they had a lead, and they went for the stupidest backdoor play that I've ever seen.
Man, it was it was really stupid. I can't deny that.
You know what happened?
But they were one auto attack away from ending the game right there.
But there's no reason to go for that.
You know what happened? Someone in the audience yelled "Expeke" because he'd walked into the studio at that moment. And so the Unicorn player heard this and was like, "Oh shit,
it's time.
I know what we're going to do today, brain." And then boom.
Yeah. That was
it. That was exactly what happened.
That's exactly what happened. No one can deny it. But yeah, that backdoor.
You can't prove me wrong, so fuck you guys.
That backdoor was really bad. I was really disappointed when I saw that. I was hoping for a game 3. I was thinking to myself, hey, Unicorns has got this. Just close it out methodically. Do just the standard. Everyone just kind of pushes a lane, and then you pile into the base, wait for your supers to start hitting the turrets, or in that case, the open nexus, and then you can end the game. But no, we have to go for this crazy, stupid backdoor to try and win the game for no goddamn reason. It's like, what are you doing, dude?
You know what? I have to revise a statement that may or may not have got cut in production that I made earlier, where I said that this was really shitty out of Unicorns of Love. I actually think, for the same reasons that I said FlyQuest and Cloud9 could lose games, I'm totally fine with this series from Unicorns of Love as well. Like, yeah, they tried some pretty hypey shit. They kept pushing plays when maybe they didn't need to. But they can afford the loss at this point. Like, they were outside of this, not touched by anybody in Europe at this point. I do think their style of play does, like you were saying, need to be more, I don't know what the word is.
Controlled is probably a good way.
It needs to have a better, well thought out plan behind it.
There's a time and a place.
So much of it.
There's a time and a place.
So much of what they do.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like they're great at like jazz, you know?
Right.
Like, you give them a random instrument and they be able to shut the fuck up, Blake. I'm talking. They're like, you give them a random instrument, you give them a beat, they're gonna be like, all right, cool, we'll just all jam, whatever. And then you give them like sheet music, and they look at that shit and they're like, why did you give me Egyptian? I don't know what's going on. Who are you? Where am I? Where's LCS Studio? I'm very confused.
It's like the main. It's like the main character in the movie Drumline, where he's very, very good at playing the drums, but he can't read sheet music. So, you know, he can rally
like
the school and like win, I don't know, whatever they were playing for in that movie. That's like the tournament, I guess. It had nothing to do with football, but you know, when it really comes to like being able to execute in the long run, they're just not there. And I think, unfortunately, we're gonna see some shit at IEM. We're gonna see some very bad play, because now mix in travel with having to, or actually, how far is Katowice from the LCS studio?
7.
Well, it's in Poland. LCS studios in Berlin.
Yeah. So
it's not that far.
It's not that.
At least
45
7
minute
miles
at most.
Yeah. Our geography might be a little off.
It takes at least 4 minutes to get there.
Right. So, you know, maybe it's not that detrimental for them to get in some different experiences other European teams aren't going to get, except for the fact that G2 and H2K, their biggest contention at this point, you know, are going to get those experiences. So it'll just be interesting to see how they react to this. But let's talk about Group B, unless you have any other thoughts.
Nah, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, let's talk about Group B and close this puppy out because we already kind of hit unicorns pretty hard. So we'll stop. We'll sort of stop there. Origin, nothing needs to be said. We're gonna do a whole episode on it. We've decided.
Oh yeah.
Vitality, super bad.
Fucking hot. Just fucking bad, man. I can't deal with this team anymore. They get rid of Hachani for AOD. They swap Hachani out for AOD. They decide, well, we're still fucking getting slaughtered with AOD here. Let's just bring Hachani back. It's not really going to change fucking anything. And then their drafts are just the dumbest things in the world. They draft like they're unicorns of love, but they're all bad. So it doesn't actually say anything. Like, it's just like, yeah, okay, you can give up all the OPs to the other team, but you don't have any counters to this. I know every name on the team is good, but you're just not performing for shit.
It's the Team Liquid phenomenon.
It is. They're the European equivalent of Team Liquid. We saw the GBM swap in last week, and it didn't do anything. They swapped back to Nuke Duck. Basically, they're pulling people up onto the bench, and they're just going to start swapping them around, I'm pretty sure, until they figure out something that does anything. But this team is fucking hopeless by this point, man.
Yeah.
They're still the best of the bottom four, but it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I mean they're in this class of team right now with Giants, Origin and Rockhat, and the difference between the series is one, and that kind of becomes the question, really. And we didn't bring this up with Giants, but we can bring it up now. I guess it doesn't matter a ton, except for the fact that European Challenger is actually looking really good with Schalke and Fnatic Academy. What they've got in the pipeline right now, like, it actually does look like we could finally see some new European talent come through, which is really exciting. But
we got Misfits. That's new European talent.
Yeah, that is true. That's a very good point.
So, yeah, Cacao's really new.
I'm gonna be very curious to see. By the way,
Power of Evil, Hansama.
Yeah, I'd be very curious to see if
Ignar.
If Fnatic.
It's really just Alfari and Hansama.
Pretty much.
It's really just Alfari and Hansama.
I'd be curious to see if what happens with Fnatic Academy, because I don't know at this point who buys like a European Challenger team going into North America, because someone's going to have to buy that contract if they make it in, and it's looking like it could be there. But yeah, like at some point, Rockhat and Origin, one of those two teams is going to have a tying record with either Giants or Vitality. So that's going to be a pretty hyped up match to see who potentially could get out of relegation spots. But let's move up to Splice.
Giants plays Origin next week, and so that could give Giants a second win.
Yeah, that's going to give them the potential little booster shot up and over. But let's talk about Splice with the 2-0 week this week. I'd say pretty good overall for them.
Yeah, that's me. I'm like, Splice. Oh yeah, they were really good. I really like.
Oh yeah, really. They have a snake as a symbol.
Why did I watch them? Oh, because they're my team.
And I was trying to think if they were cool or not.
yeah, they're on me. So they played against Rockhat, which is a fucking throwaway. There's nothing to talk about. They dominated both games. But then they played against Fnatic, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Fnatic, if you really want to prove that you belong in kind of the upper echelon top 5 of Europe, you should have been able to beat Splice. They weren't. They had a very dominant first game against Splice. Splice didn't do very well. Trashy hasn't been super consistent already, and he was not very good. Senkux was also inordinately uncoordinated almost on Cassiopeia. But then games 2 and 3, Splice kind of just crushed. Senkux was fantastic. They brought out the Ivern in game 2. And then they kept going, which I loved. They kept going with a damaged top laner. So Wonder played Rumble 2 games and played Gangplank the second game. So he lost the first game on Rumble and then won the second one. Then obviously won the Gangplank game, the Gangplank matchup into Shen that we've actually seen a lot. And we keep seeing teams blind picking the Shen and then getting a Gangplank in return and just getting fucking rolled because a Shen cannot do anything in lane to a Gangplank. And by the time a Shen's actually good enough and strong enough to split push, it's not going to ever match up against the Gangplank unless the Gangplank's getting camped like fucking crazy and is down in gold. That just doesn't happen. So, great series overall from Splice. Their picks and bans were looking significantly better. Trashy in Game 3 against Fnatic was able to show up on Kha'Zix, which is a champ he's been struggling with. He has the same troubles as X-Smithy and Sven have had in North America, in that they haven't been super great on the really aggressive assassin-like junglers. But he looked much better. Kha'Zix is already going to be dropping in priority, so I'm not super worried about that. But yeah, cleaner picks and bans. They beat a team that was kind of an up-and-comer, which is good for their confidence. I think they're looking very easily like a top 5 team in Europe. The question is whether or not they're better than UOL or H2K at this point, or if they're even. And I don't think they're quite there yet, but they're getting their confidence back, and they're looking cleaner. So.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably, a playoffs team at this point. It's going to take a lot to completely fall out of grace, but it's going to be this Fnatic Splice matchup again on the lower tier, in which team's going to be able to square off against their higher-ups in quarterfinals. That's really what's going to determine things. And when you have H2K, who we'll talk about in just a second here, and Misfits, potentially filling those 2 spots, that's a tough pill to swallow for Splice. So they still got a lot of work to do, but things are at least looking a little better. Let's talk about H2K.
Well, H2K had a really easy week this week, going up against Giants, a game. And so, as I said earlier about the Misfits playing super clean and just basically tearing Vitality apart and almost having 2 perfect games, this was the same kind of thing of just two very dominant games, but Giants tried things. And I have to give that to Giants, because they were able to get a couple kills. They died a lot more, but they got kills, and they actually were trying to do things. They were able to get dragons. They were able to do more. And so it was a more entertaining series to watch, but H2K just the same kind of thing. It's a lot better of a team playing a really bad team. They had no trouble beating Giants. They picked well. They fucking played well. Not a lot here either.
What do you think about the matchup next week with Fnatic? Because that's kind of a big deal for playoffs positioning, maintaining the 1 game lead over Fnatic. They would be tied up after that series.
Yeah, I don't think H2K has to worry about Fnatic. H2K is more together for sure. I think right now they outplay Fnatic in just about every lane with no issue.
Hell yeah, dude.
I'm liking it.
Yeah, just absolutely no issue in there.
Well, we'll be talking about G2, H2K, and Unicorns of Love in our game next Monday, streamed on the T-Force channel on twitch.tv/T-Force Network. That'll be pretty good. We're going to have a lot of fun. We have a lot more than 5 people on the show nowadays, so if everyone is in attendance, we'll probably have to pull in some fans. So if you're around, 9 p.m. Eastern is when we'll look to get our start going, earlier if we can help it. But it should be a lot of fun, and you'll at least be able to watch it. Maybe I can get some old favorites from the LCS Rundown's history to potentially even cast those games, and you can watch
if they ever if they ever respond to you.
Yeah. I can get them. Don't worry. I'll figure something out. But then you wouldn't hear our awesome IEM content, so maybe that's not a good thing to do. We'll figure it out. It'll be a fun time for all. But we've had enough fun on this episode, I think. Because, man, maybe we should starting with Europe again, because I feel like we have a lot of energy in North America, and then it tapers off for good old Europe.
Because there's nothing
so
going
boring.
on in
There's
Europe.
like one game for some of them every week.
Yeah, the European.
And
What is
that's-
this? Football?
The biggest issue with Europe is like what I just had to go through with Misfits and H2K is I have two good teams that each play a fucking shit team, and that's all I have to go off of. So it's like, oh, I get in the game. Well, both teams won definitively, and the other team sucks dick. Okay.
Well
Yeah.
said.
I mean, like, I really hope Riot changes this for Europe. And they got to give something dope to Europe. They need to, like, I don't know, come up with some...
Just give them more Koreans, whatever.
It's
don't-
never
I don't
worked for
understand.
them.
You know what I think they need? Another
That's
format
why I don't care.
change.
They're
Another
Right?
format change.
That's the thing is they have to. There has to be format changes.
Yeah.
And it has
Riot
to stop
complains
being
about
the
how
test
no
grounds.
one. Yeah, they complain about how no one watches EU, and then they give them shit like this.
Yeah, it's like
why
we're
is
gonna
anyone
put their
watch
games on.
EU
We're gonna put their games on
when
Sundays
there's
sometimes.
when there's less to watch. Who's gonna watch when there's less to watch? Like that's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
If
I will
there's
be
not as much to
interested.
watch, I'm not gonna watch it.
I will be interested to see, like, how what Riot's official statement on this change is going to be. Like, if they're going to say, like, yes, this happened, this worked like we wanted it to work. Because, like, North America, when they get stuff to test out, it's like, oh, we found a way to completely replicate every keystroke and, like, ping that was done on the map to rewind games 5 seconds by completely rebuilding them. That's what we're testing in North America. You know, just to see if it works out. Europe, let's make a garbage system and make only the good teams play each other sometimes. And let's
And make Mexico pay for it.
how are we going to determine what teams are going to play what? We'll let
Make Origen pay
We'll let-
for it. That's way better. Sorry, I was still thinking
all right.
about that.
That's it for the LCS rundown this week. We're going to leave on
And
that.
on that bombshell.
Yeah, on that banger. We'll
Good night, everybody.
leave it at
Good
that.
or good day, morning. I don't know when you're listening to this. Live your fucking life.